Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into a story that, well, it starts with something that seems pretty small, almost awkward. A little lie backstage.
Yeah, but as we'll see, that moment wasn't just some quirky start. It turns out to be the first thread in something much bigger and, frankly, deeply troubling.
Before we go deeper into the story, we will love your support by subscribing to the YouTube channel and also drop your honest comment.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
We've got a narrative here that begins with that confession, that lie, but then really takes some unexpected twists and turns.
Exactly. And what's fascinating looking at the source material we've gathered is how these moments that seem disconnected, well, in hindsight, they start to form a pattern. It raises some serious questions about, integrity, accountability.
Right. So this deep dive, what we want to do is trace that narrative.
Starting with Josh Brown meeting Rachel Lamb, looking at some earlier concerns that were reported, and then getting into these more recent, very personal claims involving the Dyer network and the Lamb family.
And the goal is really to understand the full scope of what's been alleged and what questions that raises for you, our listener, about trust and leadership. Okay, so part one, let's set the scene. You've got Pastor Russell Evans. He's a big deal, leads Planet Shakers, this huge church movement from Australia.
Right, a global Pentecostal ministry. He's in the U.S. for a book tour.
And he's at the Dyer network for a show. It's a major Christian media platform.
And traveling with him is Josh Brown, also from Australia, apparently working really hard, like 14, 15-hour days, supporting this tour.
Just part of the entourage, basically.
That's how it seemed. And that's where Rachel Lamb comes in. She's working behind the scenes there in production, never seen Josh before. She needs someone to handle sending some backstage photos.
And she just assumes Josh is Pastor Russell's assistant. Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, she approaches him thinking that, but instead of Josh just, correcting her.
He lies. He says, yep, that's me.
He did. He actually confessed to it later, publicly. Said he even thought, well, God, I'm about to lie. Forgive me.
Wow. And he even prayed for her then, believing it was, what, a kind gesture.
That's how he framed it. But Rachel's take on it, reportedly, was completely different.
Yeah, I read that. She felt it was more like a curse. Said her life started changing in weird ways right after.
Almost like, yeah, something spiritual got stirred up by that initial deception.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How a seemingly small lie right at the very beginning.
How it can sort of set the tone, pave the way for bigger issues.
Exactly. That lack of authenticity, it seems to ripple outwards.
And it wasn't just the lie itself. It's how it connects to trust, Psychologically, it's like this little breach can make bigger breaches seem less significant later on, the slippery slope.
Right. And apparently, when Josh shared this story on Dyer's own Table Talk show.
Yeah, one of those informal chat segments.
A lot of viewers started questioning things. Like, wait a minute.
And then allegations came out that Dyer, and specifically Joanne Lamb, hadn't done any real background check on him before he became so involved.
Which, given what comes next, seems like a huge oversight. Because this story doesn't just begin with that meeting. Our sources say that before Josh Brown was known at Dyer, before he married Rachel Lamb, there were already serious whispers about his time back at Planet Shakers in Australia.
Yeah, that's a key point. Concerns about his behavior were apparently being flagged as early as 2012. This is while he was active in ministry there. And these weren't just, vague rumors.
No, specific incidents were cited, things that raised serious red flags for people who knew him then.
It suggests this wasn't entirely out of the blue when issues surfaced later.
And there's one specific situation that keeps coming up in the sources.
Right. Josh allegedly made a really inappropriate comment to a male colleague.
Just a casual moment, the colleague bends down to pick something up.
And Josh reportedly says something like, "Oh, don't tempt me."
Which, yikes. Some might try to brush that off as a really bad joke, maybe.
Maybe, but the people there, especially the colleague involved, they absolutely did not see it that way.
No, it reportedly crossed a line, made the guy feel...
It wasn't just a one-off awkward comment. It was part of what they called a disturbing pattern.
A pattern observed over time in that ministry setting. It really makes you question the environment.
It does. How are these things handled? Or sometimes not handled.
And the reaction to that specific incident really highlights how serious it was taken, at least by the colleague.
Definitely. He apparently took it right to the top, wrote a formal letter.
To Pastor Russell Evans himself, the head of Planet Shakers.
Yes. Detailing what happened and what he described as repeated inappropriate behavior.
Wow. Sending a formal letter to the top leader. That's a big step.
It absolutely is, especially in a church hierarchy like that.
What does that signal to you? I mean, the risks for the person complaining must be huge.
Immense risks. Professional blowback, social isolation, people questioning your motives. It signals that the person felt they had no other choice, or that the regular channels weren't working. And it underlines that, even back then, this alleged behavior was seen as a serious ethical issue, not just some minor misstep.
So leadership was apparently made aware of concerns, formally, way before the Daystar connection even started.
That's what the sources indicate, yes. An early awareness.
Okay, now the story shifts, and it becomes, well, much more personal and deep, incredibly uncomfortable.
And connecting the dots, multiple sources suggest this.
Deeply, deeply troubling.
Yes, this is where the allegations move from his past into the Daystar network environment and directly involve the Lamb family, specifically Jonathan and Susie Lamb's young daughter.
Known affectionately as Baby Lamb.
Right. And this part reportedly began when Baby Lamb told her parents something deeply disturbing.
She gave her mom, Susie, a very clear, heartbreaking account.
Describing a man much taller than her dad who had allegedly done something inappropriate to her.
And she gave specifics, clues.
Yes, enough detail that it immediately set off alarm bells for Jonathan and Susie. That critical, awful moment where a child tries to disclose something terrible.
And based on her description, they started to suspect someone they knew, someone called Pete.
Described as a close family member, someone who also worked at Daystar.
And as word got out, people started connecting the dots. Who was Pete?
Eventually, speculation turned into direct accusations. Several sources identify Pete as Josh Brown,
Who, by this point, is married to Rachel Lamb, Jonathan's sister, making him family.
Exactly. Central to the family and the network.
And the alleged impact on Baby Lamb? It sounds devastating.
Susie reported that whenever her daughter saw Pete at the Daystar offices, the reaction was intense. Visible, uncontrollable fear, trembling, trying to hide under tables, just wanting to get away.
That consistent, visceral reaction, combined with what she'd already told them.
It led Jonathan and Susie to feel certain. That kind of behavior in a child is often a powerful, if heartbreaking, sign of distress.
And then there was that moment. Jonathan reportedly walked in and found Pete alone in a room with her.
Yes. That incident apparently solidified everything for them, sent shockwaves through the house, reinforced their worst fears.
It moved beyond suspicion to conviction for them.
It seems so. The disclosure, the consistent fear, the direct observation, it creates this really tragic picture of parental certainty. You can only imagine the anguish.
So what happens next? This is where it gets really contentious, according to the sources.
Extremely. Jonathan and Susie decided they had to talk to Marcus and Joanne Lamb, Baby Lamb's grandparents, the network founders.
They went looking for support, guidance, action, presumably.
Right. But the response they allegedly got was, well, not that.
Joanne Lamb, when she heard these serious allegations, she discouraged them from going to the police. Is that right?
That's what Jonathan and Susie alleged, which immediately raises huge questions about priorities. Institutional image versus protecting a child.
And then it got even weirder, didn't it? Joanne asked to speak to Baby Lamb privately.
Yes, just the two of them. We don't know exactly what was said in that meeting.
But afterwards, Baby Lamb just stopped talking about it. Completely.
That's the report. She clammed up, shut down, wouldn't discuss it anymore.
For Jonathan and Susie, that sudden silence must have been terrifying. It felt unnatural to them.
Huge red flags. They felt something in that meeting made her suppress her voice, hold back the truth she'd been trying to share.
That sudden silence, it's chilling. What does that usually indicate when a child reacts like that after trying to disclose something?
Psychologically, it's often a sign of secondary trauma or feeling intimidated. Fear of not being believed, fear of getting someone in trouble, fear of upsetting an authority figure like a grandparent. The child might pick up on subtle cues or even direct suggestions that silence is safer or required. It's a classic indicator that intervention is needed, that the child felt pressured.
And then, allegedly, the narrative started to shift away from Pete.
Exactly. Joanne reportedly started blaming Baby Lamb herself, painting her as difficult, disruptive.
Potentially undermining her credibility.
That seems to be the implication. And even more troubling, allegedly trying to minimize what Pete was accused of doing.
Saying he loved Baby Lamb, just wanted some time with her. Downplaying the seriousness.
Completely downplaying the inappropriate nature of what the child had described. It's a form of narrative control, perhaps?
Now, it's easy for us, looking from the outside, to condemn that kind of response. But These are leaders under immense pressure, family dynamics. Are there complexities that might explain such a protective yet damaging reaction?
That's a really important question. Leaders, especially in public ministries, face huge pressure to maintain stability, the image. In a crisis like this, the instinct can be to protect the institution, the family name, maybe even the alleged perpetrator if they're seen as key.
Fear of scandal, wanting to handle it internally.
Potentially. Fear of public shame, maybe a misguided belief that a spiritual solution is better than involving secular authorities. Shifting the narrative, minimizing things. It could be an attempt to control the story, avoid confronting painful truths about a family member.
But as the sources stress, that kind of response draws intense criticism.
Precisely. It highlights that tension.
Yeah.
Protecting power versus the call to integrity and protecting the vulnerable.
So, wrapping this up,
Yeah.
where does this leave us? We started with that small lie backstage.
Yeah, a moment that seemed almost trivial then.
But unpacking it all, it became this huge turning point, not just for them personally, but for this whole conversation about accountability in ministry.
This deep dive really shows a complex web of allegations, doesn't it? Spanning years, different places, planet shakers, dire. It's a stark illustration of how the past doesn't stay buried and how actions, and especially the reactions to allegations, have massive consequences.
Yeah, often devastating consequences.
Oh, really?
Forces us to think about the cost of silence versus that call to integrity.
Especially for people in leadership. These aren't easy things to talk about.
No, but crucial for understanding trust, power, truth, and the responsibility that comes with influence.
It really underscores the need for robust, impartial ways to handle allegations in organizations like these. Systems that aren't swayed by internal dynamics or the desire to protect reputations over people.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what are, frankly, incredibly difficult and impactful allegations. We really encourage you to reflect on what you've heard today. Think about these dynamics: trust, accountability, protecting vulnerable voices.
There's always more to learn, definitely, and understanding these complexities is so important. Maybe consider this. When stories like this come out, how do they challenge us? How do they make us look at the systems we trust, the leaders we admire? What happens when people we look up to face really uncomfortable truths? And maybe most importantly, how do we make sure that vulnerable voices aren't just heard, but that action is actually taken? Something to think about.